Have you ever stopped to think about why a man chooses to truly commit to a woman? I'm not talking about a fleeting relationship, staying together for a few months and then disappearing, but rather a real commitment. That silent decision he makes within himself when he realizes he no longer wants to look elsewhere, when he decides that you are the person he will invest his time, energy, and life in. We often believe that the reasons are obvious: beauty, affection, friendship, or even physical chemistry. But the truth is that these factors may even carry weight in the beginning. They attract attention, create desire, create that phase of enchantment. However, for a man to make the internal decision to stay, there are only two invisible factors, two elements that cannot be seen with the naked eye, that do not appear in ordinary conversation, that are not stamped on an isolated gesture. They are silent forces that act behind the male mind, determining whether he will just pass through your life or build something alongside you. And I know it may sound strange when I say invisible factors, but that is precisely why most women are confused. They believe they need to be perfect, beautiful all the time, please everyone, make concessions, or even accept less than they deserve to keep a man. And that's where many become frustrated, because even though they give their all, the man simply chooses not to stay. He may even like her, he may even show affection, but inside, in his mind, the decision has not yet been made. What I want you to understand right now is that this choice does not happen by chance. Every man, consciously or unconsciously, conducts a kind of invisible test. He observes, he analyzes, he feels, and when the two right factors appear, it's as if a switch flips inside him. From then on, he stops searching, stops hesitating, and decides to stay. But here's the detail that few people talk about. These two factors have nothing to do with appearance, status, or even declared love. They are linked to deep instincts that guide the male mind. And when a woman awakens these points, she doesn't have to chase, beg, or plead for attention. The man naturally becomes attached, naturally dedicates himself, and naturally chooses. In this video, I'm going to reveal this secret in detail. I'll show you why these two invisible factors are so powerful and how they work in practice. You'll understand why many relationships fail soon after the initial phase while others grow stronger over time. You'll realize that it's not about luck or chance, but about silent triggers that, when activated, make all the difference. Before we get into the deep content, I want to invite you to reflect for a few seconds. How many times have you wondered what was missing in a past relationship? How many times did you feel like you were giving it your all, but even so, he didn't stay? Or maybe you're in a relationship now, and you realize that the man hasn't yet made the complete decision to be by your side with his heart and soul. Well, know this. The answer to these questions lies precisely in these two invisible factors. And throughout this 30-minute video, you will gain clarity that you may never have had before about what really guides a man's heart and mind. This is not complicated theory, nor is it pretty phrases from social media. It is pure male psychology, translated into simple words so that anyone can understand and apply it in real life. Stay until the end, because it's not enough to just know what these two factors are. You also need to understand how to awaken them without forcing, manipulating, or losing your essence. When you learn how to do this, you will no longer have to worry about being replaced, forgotten, or devalued. Because when a man decides to stay, it's not because of appearance, interest, or pressure. It's because something inside him has been activated and he can no longer let go. To better understand how these two invisible factors work, let's imagine the journey of an ordinary man in his relationships. Think of a guy who has dated several women, had moments of passion, been involved in intense relationships, but never really stayed. He always seemed to find an excuse. I'm not ready. It's not the right time. I don't think she's the right person. On the surface, it may seem like indecision or even immaturity, but behind it, there is something much deeper. When this man meets someone, the first few days or weeks are marked by novelty. Her beauty catches his attention, her way of speaking attracts him, the moments together seem perfect. However, this initial phase is not enough for him to make the internal decision to stay. It's as if he's experimenting, observing. He doesn't yet feel the invisible security that activates the deepest instincts of his mind. Now think of a different example. He meets a woman who doesn't strive to be perfect all the time. She doesn't try to control every detail. She doesn't need to prove every moment that she deserves to stay. She simply is. She has presence. She is clear about what she wants, and she knows how to set boundaries naturally. At that moment, without realizing it, he begins to feel something different. It's not just desire, it's not just affection. It's a kind of security that his mind unconsciously seeks. And here we are touching on one of the two invisible factors. Another real example. How many times have you seen men stay for years with a woman who, in the eyes of others, was not the most beautiful, did not have the most perfect body or the most impressive status? Yet he remained, defended the relationship, made plans, and gave up other opportunities. Why? Because these two invisible factors were present, and that was enough to secure his decision. It is important to note that men do not talk about this. They do not sit down with their friends and say, "I chose to stay because these two factors were activated." No, this happens silently in the subconscious. The man just feels that he has found something rare and decides not to let go. And when these factors don't appear, the relationship may even have good moments, it may even last for months or years, but deep down, the man is never fully committed. He always leaves a door open, always has a hidden doubt, is always one step behind. That's why so many relationships end suddenly, even when everything seemed fine. Now let's look at the other side of the coin. Many women believe that in order to keep a man, they need to sacrifice themselves. They accept less than they deserve, lose their own identity, and live for their partner. And what happens? He doesn't choose to stay, because no man makes that decision based on submission or desperation. On the contrary, when he feels that, he pulls away even more. This is the point where many women say, "I gave it my all," and even that wasn't enough. And the answer is simple. It wasn't because what really keeps a man isn't what you give in excess, but what you convey in an invisible way. An important detail is that these factors cannot be faked. You can pretend for a while, but the male mind senses when something is forced. The true power of these two elements lies in the fact that they flow naturally when a woman is aligned with her own essence, when she doesn't try to be someone she's not. And that's exactly where the secret lies. A man chooses to stay when he feels he has found something he can't buy, can't force, can't replace. In the next few minutes, we're going to break down each of these two invisible factors, showing how they appear in practice, and how you can awaken them in your life without having to change who you are. But before I reveal what they are, I want you to keep one idea in mind. It's not about how much effort you put in, nor about trying to be perfect. It's about activating internal triggers that most women ignore, and that, when discovered, completely change the dynamics of the relationship. The time has come to reveal the first invisible factor that makes a man decide to truly stay with a woman. This factor is simple to understand but powerful enough to completely change the dynamics of any relationship: the feeling of emotional peace. It may seem obvious at first glance, but it's not. Emotional peace does not mean the absence of conflict. It does not mean that there will never be arguments, and much less that the woman needs to be passive or accept everything to avoid fights. The emotional peace I'm talking about is that quiet energy that a man feels when he is with someone who does not turn every detail into a battlefield. It is the tranquility of being with a person who does not live in a constant cycle of demands, drama, or insecurity. Men may even be attracted to intensity, mystery, and explosive passion. This holds their attention for a while. But when it comes time to decide to stay, to truly commit, they look for something different. An emotional environment where they can rest their minds. Think about it. The world is already pressuring us. Work is demanding. Responsibilities weigh heavily. When he finds someone who can convey balance, that is one of the strongest triggers there is. And how does this emotional peace manifest itself in practice? I'll give you some clear examples. When a disagreement arises, the woman does not turn it into a personal attack. When he needs silence, she understands that it is not rejection, but just his way of recharging. When a problem arises, instead of adding to the confusion, she seeks to understand and collaborate. This attitude creates a unique atmosphere that the man perceives without needing words. It's as if his subconscious says, "Here I can rest. Here I can be myself. Here I don't need to wear masks." And when he feels that, he's unlikely to want to give it up. Now, you may think, but doesn't that mean I'll have to swallow everything silently? Not at all. Emotional peace is not the absence of a voice. On the contrary, it is balanced firmness. It is knowing how to say no when you need to, but without turning it into a war. It is setting clear boundaries, but without the need to humiliate, manipulate, or explode. It's speaking your mind confidently, without resorting to anger or blackmail. Men deeply value this quality because Even if they can't explain it, they realize that most people they encounter embody the opposite: insecurity, instability, endless demands. So when they find someone who radiates peace, they recognize it as something rare, almost impossible to find. Think about how many times you've heard stories from men who said something like, "With her, I feel at home," or, "When I'm with her, everything seems lighter." This has nothing to do with appearance, status, or exaggerated effort. It has to do with the first invisible factor: emotional peace. And here's an even deeper detail. Emotional peace doesn't mean you have to carry the weight of the relationship alone. It starts with you. A man notices when a woman has inner balance, when she doesn't depend on him to be happy, when she doesn't project all her insecurities onto him. This emotional autonomy creates a magnetic field. He feels he doesn't need to save you, and that makes him want to stay. Another important point is that emotional peace is not monotony. Many women confuse balance with boredom, but in fact, this peace creates space for the relationship to flourish in a healthy way, without unnecessary drama. There is energy left over to create truly intense moments, make plans, laugh together, and enjoy life. This first invisible factor is so powerful that often a man only realizes it when he loses it. He leaves a woman who offered this tranquility, and when he gets involved with another who only brings insecurity and demands, he understands the value he left behind. Therefore, when he finds this peace in a genuine way, he will hardly want to risk losing it. In the next few minutes, we will dive into the second invisible factor, the one that, together with emotional peace, seals any man's decision once and for all. But before moving on, keep this idea in mind. It's not about not arguing. It's not about always pleasing him. It's about creating a space where his mind can rest and his heart can find stability. If the first invisible factor that makes a man choose to stay is emotional peace, the second is equally powerful, and perhaps even rarer: silent admiration. It may seem simple, but it's not. Admiration is not just complimenting or saying you're amazing. It's something much deeper. It's the genuine feeling that the person he's with inspires him, awakens respect in him, and makes him feel like a better man. When a man feels true admiration for a woman, he doesn't just see a romantic partner. He sees someone who becomes an essential part of his vision for the future. And here's the detail that almost no one talks about. A man can love, he can feel attraction, he can even have a strong connection. But if he doesn't feel admiration, he's unlikely to choose to stay. The opposite is also true. Even if the relationship faces difficulties, when admiration is present, it acts as an invisible glue that holds everything together. But how is this admiration built? It has nothing to do with status, money, or social recognition. Admiration comes from a woman's attitudes, choices, and approach to life. For example, when she firmly defends her boundaries, showing that she knows what she deserves. When she takes care of herself, not out of vanity, but out of respect for herself. When she shows that she has a vision for the future, dreams, and goals of her own, without depending on a man to exist. When she deals with difficulties without playing the victim all the time, but with resilience and courage. All of this awakens something powerful in the male mind. The man looks and thinks, "This woman elevates me, makes me want to be better, makes me proud to be by her side." Now compare this with the opposite situation. Many men end up walking away when they realize that the relationship boils down to demands, insecurity, and dependence. This does not generate admiration, it generates weight, and weight, sooner or later, becomes unsustainable. When a man does not admire the woman he is with, he may stay for a while, but internally, he is already distant. That is when excuses, coldness, and lack of investment in the relationship arise. And mind you, admiration is not perfection. It does not mean never making mistakes or always being on a pedestal. On the contrary, it grows precisely when the man sees that the woman is authentic, that she is not afraid to show vulnerability, but that she also does not lose herself in dependence. He feels that he is with someone who has her own essence, and this automatically generates respect. A clear example: think of stories of couples in which the woman, even in the face of financial crises or personal problems, maintained her dignity, sought solutions, and remained steadfast. The man, seeing this, does not forget. This attitude is etched in his mind as a sign of strength, and within his unconscious, the decision to stay is strengthened. Another example: women who inspire their partners to grow, not because they demand it, but because their very way of life serves as an example. A man who looks at his partner and feels proud will naturally want to stay, because deep down, every man wants to walk alongside someone who adds value, whom he respects, whom he knows he can present to the world without hesitation. This second invisible factor, silent admiration, is what transforms attraction into a decision. It is what makes a man think not only about the present, but about a future alongside that woman. When he feels emotional peace and true admiration, he doesn't need anything else. These two factors together create an invisible bond that is much stronger than any promise or word. And here's an important warning. Some women, when they hear this, think they need to try too hard to be admired. But the truth is that real admiration does not come from artificial effort, but from authenticity. When you live according to your values, when you respect yourself, when you seek personal growth, this naturally arouses respect. You don't need masks, you don't need games. Now, do you understand why so many men go through several relationships but only choose to stay in one? It's because only in one did they find these two invisible factors. They may not be able to explain it in words, but they know exactly how they feel. And when they feel it, they hardly ever go back. In the next few minutes, we're going to connect the two factors and show you how they work together, how you can apply this in a practical way, and why, without them, everything else ends up being only temporary. Now that you know the two invisible factors that make any man decide to stay, emotional peace and silent admiration, it's time to connect these pieces and understand how they truly transform a relationship. Many relationships start out intense with passion, chemistry, desire, and even promises. But over time, the initial energy changes. If there is nothing deeper sustaining that connection, everything falls apart. That's where these two factors come in. They are like invisible roots that hold the tree upright, even when the strong winds of life blow. Emotional peace ensures that a man finds refuge in the relationship, a place where he can rest from the pressures of the world. This does not mean the absence of problems, but the certainty that together, it is possible to face each one without turning everything into a war. This sense of balance is rare and powerful. Silent admiration, on the other hand, is the fuel that makes a man look at his partner and feel proud to be by her side. It is what makes him think about the future, want to build, want to stay. Without admiration, even the strongest love wears thin. With admiration, even difficult moments become bearable. And most importantly, these factors do not depend on appearance, social status, money, or exaggerated sacrifices. They depend on how you position yourself in the relationship and in life. A man chooses to stay when he feels that by her side he has peace and pride. He doesn't need to explain it in words. He doesn't need to announce it. But inside him, the decision has already been made. How many stories have you heard of men who seemed like playboys, who couldn't stay in any relationship, but suddenly found a woman and changed completely? To the observer, it may seem like magic, but in practice it's simple. This woman awakened the two invisible factors in him. She offered emotional peace and inspired admiration, and that was enough for him to decide to stay. On the other hand, how many stories are there of women who tried too hard, who sacrificed themselves, who tried to be perfect, and still weren't chosen? This happens because effort does not activate the invisible factors. On the contrary, it often suffocates them. What really creates a bond is what cannot be forced: balance and authenticity. So, what to do from here? First, understand that emotional peace begins within you. When you resolve your own insecurities, when you learn to value yourself and not depend on external validation, you naturally transmit that energy. Second, live in a way that inspires quiet admiration. This doesn't mean being perfect, but being true, steadfast, resilient, and forward-thinking. Men admire when they see that their partner has her own strength, and not just when she molds herself to please. When these two factors go hand in hand, there is no room for doubt. Men don't need to think twice. They don't need lists of pros and cons. They don't need to look elsewhere. They simply decide. And when that decision is made, it is not temporary. They may face difficulties. They may even go through moments of crisis. But the roots are already firmly established. And firm roots can withstand any storm. So always remember, the secret is not in being the most beautiful, the most intelligent, or the most available. The secret is in being the one who transmits peace and inspires respect. This combination is rare, and that is precisely why it is so valuable. When you finish this video, look at your own life and ask yourself, am I cultivating peace within myself? Do I inspire admiration with my choices, my attitude, and my essence? If the answer is yes, know that you are already activating the invisible factors that make any man decide to stay. And if not, that's okay. This is the time to start. Because when you understand this secret, you never have to chase again, you never have to beg again, you never have to feel inadequate again. You become the natural choice. And this is the truth. Every man only truly chooses to stay for two invisible factors: emotional peace and silent admiration. Now that you know this secret, use it to transform the way you see your relationships and the way you position yourself in the world.